Carl, I got to admit, I'm getting a little bit impatient. The waiting game is frustrating for a lot of viewers at home as well. When you look at the media coverage for the past 2 years, has the media's reputation been helped or hurt by the combination of news and speculation?
I think you have to look at the larger context of the cold civil war that's going on in this country and the division in the country. And clearly, half of the country, 40%, 45% of the most intense Trump supporters would say that we have been terrible. And then I think the rest of probably of the majority would say we've done a really good job. And I think we've done, the media, the press has done one of the great reporting jobs in the history, especially of covering a presidency by the most news organizations. And look, let's look at where the disinformation and mistakes and lying have come from. Hasn't come from the press. It's come from the President of the United States and those around him. We need to see the full Mueller report, every bit of it, every word of it, to get all of the context, which is also an important element of journalism, context. We need to know everything. The American people need to know everything. This is about Donald Trump in a larger sense, and we're going to find out. I have some confidence that we're going to find out.
If it turns out that there was a lot of smoke but no fire, is that a failure of the press to focus so much on all the smoke?
First of all, I think there has been plenty of fire regardless of whether or not there is a finding of whether or not Donald Trump is guilty of a crime. And remember, under the Justice Department guidelines, he cannot be found guilty of a crime while in office or indicted. So that's why we need these underlying facts. Has there been an obstruction of justice? Perhaps the Mueller findings and the recitation of his investigation will tell us. Has there been an explanation for why he has wittingly, unwittingly, half-wittingly done Putin's bidding? Is he a tool, wittingly, unwittingly, half-wittingly of Russia, of Putin? Perhaps the Mueller report will give us some insight into that. It's all part of the same story. And we can be patient for another hour, 2 hours, or even a couple weeks to find out what's there.
You know, Matthew, we went back and looked at some of the headlines in the past about the Mueller report, the impending release, the impending conclusion. These are all headlines from last year, though. You know, we've been waiting for this moment for a long time. I wonder what it's been like personally for reporters there at the New York Times, you and your colleagues, to be in the middle of trying to get to the bottom of this story for the past nearly 2 years.
I mean, look, I think everybody knew in recent months things were coming to an end. This has been an incredibly frustrating story because Mueller's team is locked down so tight. And that's partly why it's very easy to see him as a hero or a hitman, as you put it. Because if you're on the left or the right, this is a man who's not speaking, nobody on his team is speaking, so you project onto him what you want. And you've seen a lot of that throughout our kind of political divide. For reporters, trying to thread that needle has been difficult. Look, you've had a situation where there was enough evidence or enough indications of strange contacts and other behavior to get a federal investigation going into the president and people around him. This investigation was launched before he was elected, but then continued and amplified by people the president himself appointed. The press is not going to ignore that. We cannot just say, oh, well, we'll make this a small thing. That is a big deal under any circumstances. And I think now, you know, we're going to find out. Investigations are also exculpatory. It's why you often welcome them if you're innocent. And we're going to find out that, you know, maybe there was no kind of collusion or whatever you want to call it. And I kind of hate that word. There's no direct cooperation. But, you know, we still have to see what's in there. We just don't know. That's
why do you hate
we
the word collusion?
It's fuzzy. It's, you know, is it a conspiracy? Was there some kind of cooperation? Collusion, I think, is a word that kind of allows both sides, both the left and right, to kind of project what they want onto it. You know, it's a there's no clear definition of it.
The word collusion never appeared in Mueller's mandate, after all.
No.
Now, here's what Matt Taibbi of Rolling Stone wrote yesterday. He said the news that Mueller is heading home without issuing new charges is a death blow for the reputation of the American news media. What's your reaction, Matthew?
I mean, look, Matt is welcome to his opinions on that. I don't think it's a death blow to the reputation of the American media. I think there were plenty of stories that suggested that there may not be a collusion or whatever you call it angle here. There were also stories that I know my colleagues wrote that infuriated people on the left. A story about Rod Rosenstein wanting to consider wiretapping or wearing a wire when he saw the president. These are stories that we got pilloried for from the left as well. And I think at moments like this, it's convenient to cherry pick kind of what you want to see here to make your case, and you'll see it from commentators from both the left and right.
Cherry picking problem, no matter who's picking the cherries. But Carl, on the idea here that there's been so much coverage, the volume of coverage has given people an impression that something big is coming.
Well, the volume of coverage is justified because the big question is, what is news? This investigation and the conduct and behavior of this president is the biggest story we have had in many years because his behavior and conduct is anomalous. It's different than any other president in our history. He says and does things, including the lying, that no other president has done. No other president has ever been suggested, colluded, to use that terrible word, with an enemy. And we're going to find out what the underlying facts are, I hope.
And it's just not just papers like Matthews or the New York Times that have been doing this.
First of all, there has been such fabulous reporting by especially the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal. In cable, there has been some great reporting. Other news institutions, but I want to stop on the Wall Street Journal. Its reporting has been fabulous, right up there with the Washington Post and the New York Times.
You mean the Rupert Murdoch Wall Street
Great
Journal?
Stories broken by the Wall Street Journal. Why is that so important? Because it is owned by Rupert Murdoch. Because Murdoch's paper, the paper he owns, let journalistic standards prevail, and we know a hell of a lot more about Donald Trump and this investigation because of the Wall Street Journal. And the right wing, the blind following. I'm not saying that there's plenty of room for people to support Donald Trump if they want to, but this idea of marching in lockstep, that those people, and Republicans particularly, ought to take a look at what the Wall Street Journal's reporting has been, because it has been very much in keeping with what we have reported on CNN, what the Washington Post has reported, what Matt has reported, et cetera, et cetera. And it is exemplary, and it ought to be stressed over and over and over again that the same owner of Fox News published these stories in his paper.
It's a great point.
And I think we ought to keep looking at that question.
It's a great point.